All right, folks, we are back. Nightmare Success In and Out. This is where you guys come for the good stuff with what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? I am so excited to interview my guest, Melvin Parson. Um, and I want to give a shout out to Tony Gant, who connected us up. He's continued to give me Jessica Henry and all kinds of different good people. But man, if you check out Melvin and just Google him, there's all kinds of good stuff from TV to PBS NewsHour. I read this just it's a lengthy thing that talks about all the good stuff that Melvin's done. But Melvin went through 13 years in and out of prison, and when he got out, he got educated, and then the interesting thing is he fell into this situation, and I'll just kind of read from where he was. It says Melvin Parson did not know anything about growing vegetables when he inherited a raised vegetable bed at a community garden after a friend had passed away. I didn't ask for the vegetable bed; it just landed in my lap," said Parson, also known as Farmer Melvin. But what was intentional was that I paid close attention to the soil. For some reason, I instinctively added good compost, worm compost, and just tried to really be kind to the soil. As a result, it produced some really good produce. And he said, it dawned on me, same thing applies to human beings, right? It's all about our soil. And man, isn't that true? We were just talking, Mel and I were talking before we got on. You put a plant in good soil and you work with it and you feed it and you do the things that'll make it healthy, and that plant does well. You take that plant, that healthy plant, put it in bad soil, and it gets sick and it's unhealthy. And then you take a healthy plant, put it back in bad soil, it'll get sick and unhealthy. So I get it. Melvin founded a nonprofit, and it's all based on reentry, which is something I really am excited to talk to him about because reentry is hard, not easy. But he founded We the People Opportunity Farm, and it happened in 2015. And man, he has hit the ground running. He's doing all kinds of things, not just teaching people a trade of how to do this farm and sell and give these to the community and fund this, all the things that he's doing. He's also getting them back into life, giving them their confidence back, giving them the things that they need, making them healthy. Before we unpack all that, I want to recognize our sponsor for the show, Auto Plaza Direct. You know, who likes spending a couple weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a trip to the dentist. Well, there's a better way to take away all that pain and hassle of getting a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They are your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price and get that car to you. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge, the new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. Welcome in, Melvin Parson, as they call him, Farmer Melvin. How are you, man?
Man, I'm wonderful, man. I'm sitting here in my backyard. The sun's shining, the weather's warm, and I'm doing I'm doing well.
You are. You look good. You got your We the People's T-shirt on. Uh,
Yeah.
Melvin, it looks great, doesn't it? I even like the logo on that.
Yeah, a buddy of mine who works at Henry Ford Museum in their graphics department helped me design this logo several years ago.
Love it. It's good stuff, man. So, Melvin, you have such an interesting story. I mean, I don't even know quite where to begin, but let's go back and get people introduced to you of what was your world like growing up as a kid? Parents, siblings, all that stuff that happens with people in those ages.
Yeah, I had a good world growing up as a kid. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother was closest thing to an angel I've still yet to encounter in this life.
Hmm.
They sent me to private school. In fact, I was the only kid in my neighborhood, I think, that went to private school. And, of course, I didn't want to go to private school. I wanted to go to public school because that's where
Yeah.
everyone went. But they had the sense enough to like really hone in on a solid fundamental education for me, or provide that opportunity. And I don't know, Brent, by the time I I don't know, by the time I got around to the 8th grade, like my neighborhood started having more of an influence on me
Yeah.
uh than my home life did. And then that was in the middle of an era here in Detroit where I was living at, where young kids were exploited to sell drugs.
Hmm.
And so I got caught up in that mess, and just my life just kind of spiraled, began spiraling. I dropped out in the 10th grade. Uh, I graduated from grade school, went to Catholic high school named called St. Mary's of Redford. Uh, my first semester, I wound up getting like all F's or something like that, because I started smoking weed. And and my grandfather was like, "Man, I'm not throwing away good money after bad." And I'm sending you behind the public school. And I was like, "Yes, finally."
Yeah, that's where you wanted to go. Yeah.
That's where I wanted to go anyway, right? So, you know, yeah, it wasn't the best move. And then a year later, I'm dropping out of school, and just, like a series of bad choices and bad decisions, man, led me to being incarcerated by the time I was 17, and addicted to crack cocaine. Just, yeah, just spiraling out of control.
So the first time that you really dealt with the criminal justice system in a way that you had to go in, you were around 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's young,
Yeah.
going into a grown man's world.
Yep.
What was that like for you?
I tell you, it's really weird. Like this culture. There's this hood culture.
Yeah.
Like Jewish folks have bar mitzvahs for their young men as kind of like a rites of passage. And hood culture is almost like you go to prison.
Yeah.
Man goes to prison, and that's uh, a twisted sense of a rites of passage
Yeah.
in the
Because
hood.
that's what you see all around you too. All
Right.
the people in the hood are actually going in and out.
Yeah. So that's the surface stuff, right? So it gives you like this badge of honor or something like that. And you don't, like for me, I didn't really feel the effects, all those psychological effects and all that trauma associated with those type of interactions with the penal system, or being your freedom being taken, until later on in life. I didn't
Okay.
know how much damage I was doing to myself.
So when you went in and out, how long, what were your stints like? What were your stints as you were going in and out? Because you did a total, I think, of 13, right?
Yeah, so they were like mm, maybe 3 years combined in and out of county jails. Um, 4 years in Michigan Department of Corrections, 6 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. Yeah, lots of times in
Yeah.
county jails. I think I was a terrible criminal, man. I always got caught. Uh, this wasn't my jam.
How did you do in there? Like, how did you survive in there? Because for most people, everybody does their time differently.
Right.
How did you do your time?
Wow. How did I do my time? It depended on, yeah, there was a lot of variables in that. There were times where I spent a lot of time like reading books that were kept from me in the school system.
Yeah.
especially about my culture and the proud accomplishments and achievements
Hmm.
as it relates to black and brown folks.
Hmm.
There were periods of time where I just spent like doing nothing. There were times where I spent like exercising, Yeah, it just depended on where I was.
How did you, because everybody has hard days in prison, how did you handle hard days in prison?
Man, how did I handle hard days in prison? I don't know. Probably hard days. When I think about hard days, I think about depression or
Yeah.
depressed.
Yeah.
Uh, so I guess I did what most folks that normally get hit with depression. I just stayed to myself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, stayed locked in my cell or something like that.
And
Um,
and then how'd you get yourself out of that? Because there's not too many places to go. Did you exercise? Did you have a prison job that was a distraction? Reading could be an escape in that world.
like I mentioned, there was bouts where I did quite a bit of reading. Uh, as it relates to like when I hit those hard times or something like that, I don't know. It just kind of, you just kind of work, kind of plow your way through it. It wasn't like I could really go to my bros and say, man, you know what? I'm feeling fearful, right?
Yeah, you
You
can't do
know,
that.
yeah, you can't, so, you just kind of got to suck it up and,
Yeah.
you know, try to keep it moving as best you can and try to not act out too severe in too severe of a manner.
So when you got Melvin towards the end of your last stint, because as far as what was going on in your mind, were you thinking this is the last time I'm going to be doing this? What was going on in your world? Thinking, this is a long span of time here.
Hmm.
Was there a change that happened in your mindset about what you were going to do, stepping into getting out that final time?
Oh yeah, I mean, every time I got out, there was a change in my mindset, right?
Yeah, yeah,
There was one time I got, like one time I was really set on like whatever, getting out. I got a plan, but then I'm out and I got no money and I got no housing and I got none of these things. So I saw a guy with a bag of perfumes that he was selling, and he approached me and I snatched his bag and took off and ran with it, right? Uh and he chased me, and I wasn't in really good shape. So after a while, I had to stop running and say, "Man, look, man, my bad.
sorry
If you want
about
to
that.
fight, okay, but I hope you don't, right? But
Yeah,
this last time, I think that my motivating factor was when I got locked up. My son was only about 60 days old,
okay.
and so my mindset was to try to put as much time into doing something positive as I had done doing negative, in an effort to be there for my son. That was my goal.
So that was your driving survival goal was is I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to take whatever and make some positive things happen because I want that connection with him.
Yeah. And uh and then with all of that wonderful mindset and drive, I found myself like working at a gas station for dollar tips. I was a friendly service attendant. How you doing? May I check your oil, pump your gas, right? That kind of
Yeah,
thing. And then uh and then a buddy of mine mentioned, he asked me to go out to, no, I had this something in my mind said go out to this nice place called Sherwood Forest. It's like a subdivision in
yeah.
Detroit.
Mhm.
And go rake some leaves. Ask some folks if they want their leaves raked. And I didn't know that that was called a spring cleanup, but I mean, fall, yeah, spring cleanup. I found out, and I did that. I borrowed my son's mother's car and got a couple of rakes and some bags and went out there. And the next thing you know, I had 10 people wanting me to cut their grass. And I couldn't even spell lawnmower. I didn't even know how to cut grass, man. Never cut grass before, Brent. And so I went to a pawn shop and bought a lawnmower and bought this thing that blew air out of it called a
Yeah.
leaf or something. And man, like uh in 2 years time, I started a company. I had accounts with uh a couple of institutions in downtown Detroit, subcontracted some Detroit public school accounts. I had McDonald's, about 5 McDonald's, 100 residential customers. And
Did you have people working for you?
yeah, and I would get people work. That was the hard part, right? Like
Yeah.
finding work for you. And but I couldn't stop smoking crack.
Yep.
Like
You were still addicted.
I started using drugs again.
Yeah.
And in that same voice, that told me to go out to Sherwood Forest and rake some leaves, would say to me, man, if you stop getting high, I will continue to bless you abundantly. And if you don't, I'm going to take it all away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And later on that winter, everything was gone. Like
Really?
I had nothing, right? It's just, yeah,
After
I
you
was
built all that up.
astounding, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so I floundered, right? Like for years, I floundered, like battling drugs, battling homelessness, all of that. And then on May the 8th, 2004, after leaving my 13th substance abuse facility, I wound up here in Washtenaw County, where I'm currently at. Uh, Stayed in the Delonis Center, which is a shelter up here, and got connected to an organization called Don Farm, and got into recovery. And even in that, for the first 5 or 6 years up here, like I still flounder. Like everywhere you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Yeah, and then something happened, and I don't know what that something was, but I think part of that something was the support that I received from the folks who generously gave of themselves to surround me with the stuff that I didn't have, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
confidence and inspiration and motivation and determination and
Yeah.
love. Yeah, man.
So who
And
were those people, Melvin? Like, how did those people come into your life?
it's just how do people come into your life,
Yeah.
right? Like randomly, uh, without any real plan or design on your part. Um, but I've had some amazing folks come into my life. I don't even want to start listing them out because I'm
Yeah.
gonna, and then I'm gonna
Leave
feel
somebody
bad that
out.
I
Yeah.
mentioned that person. But just I've had some incredible people that have come into my life, to whose shoulders some of them I still stand on to this day.
So when you started gaining that confidence and believing in yourself, that you were gonna, kick the habit, get yourself, to the next step. What were you seeing was your next step?
I didn't know what my next step was. I just tried to do something as simple as keep a job, right? That's
Yeah.
it. That was my next step. Try to keep a job. Uh
Consistency.
yeah, I was collecting SSI, trying to stay employed. I couldn't keep a job. I'm a terrible employee, you know. It was just, yeah, man, it was just, man, like just trying to figure it out, just trying to survive, just trying to breathe. And then again, I was living in subsidized housing
Hmm.
when I wound up inheriting that 3x9, 3x15 foot raised vegetable bed that I didn't ask for.
Yeah.
Like growing food was not on my radar. I could spell it, but I tell people jokingly, man, I couldn't even spell vegetable, right? I don't know how this happened.
So
Yeah,
was somebody taking care of that and they died? Is that what happened? That was somebody
correct.
taking care of that garden and they died, and then you, how did you get roped into it?
I have no idea. The next spring, the folks there where I lived at said, "Hey, Melvin, uh, we got this vegetable bed for you." And my instinct was to say, "I don't want that damn vegetable bed,"
Yeah.
but I said, "Okay, let's see what this is all about."
So what happens? Because I know a whole heck of a lot happens because this T-shirt that you're wearing and all the people following what you do and everything that's come about. How did it start to happen?
It just so I got this vegetable bed, and they gave me a wonderful organization called Avalon Housing, whose mission is to break to end homelessness. But
Yep.
anyway, uh, they gave me some seedlings, and I planted those seedlings in the ground, and they started coming up a little bit, and it made me a little bit interested in where my food came from. And then I saw a documentary called Food Inc., and I was like, "Holy moly!" Right? My take on that was, man, my government's been telling me all this stuff that's nutritious and good for me to eat. I really shouldn't be eating.
Right.
Yeah. And then another dear friend of mine at the time who knew me probably better than anybody, he would send me all of these pictures of white farmers, right? And he knew that that would get up under my skin. Because he knows that I'm a champion of social justice and social equality.
Right.
And, and I'm a firm believer that either you've got a seat at the table or it's your ass that's on the menu. And
Exactly.
he knew that would drive me in that way.
Yeah.
And so that led me down to this very robust farmers market in Ann Arbor, Carytown in Ann Arbor, where I'm trying to figure out what an heirloom tomato is or a radish or something like that. And sometimes, Brent, I was down there for an hour and I'd see nobody that looked like me.
Yeah.
And then I looked around at the folks selling me my food, and none of those folks looked like me either.
Uh-huh.
And it felt like on one of my trips down there, the skies opened up and yelled down to me and said, "Hey, Melvin, this is where I want you to sit at." Yeah. And ever since then, I tell people often, not only do I have a seat at the table, but more importantly, I've got a voice at the table. And if I don't mess this thing up, I've got an opportunity to set the table in some ways.
Yeah, and,
And,
and I
and
mean, obviously, I think that's one of the biggest things too, is for somebody like yourself that's lived through homelessness, that's gone through all the systems of the systems, and really understands it, and you actually know what people need that are trying to get their second chance working. When did it occur to you that the soil that you were creating and then the things that you were growing related to, oh my gosh, this is like reentry. This is like fixing people. This is like growing people. What how did can you walk us through that? How that all happened for you?
yeah, the whole soil analogy came to me, Brent, at the end of my first real kind of like farming season
Hmm.
in 2017. Um, like to your intro, like that year, I wound up selling some vegetables to restaurants. And like the chefs were like, "Man, this is amazing. This is incredible, fresh, nutritious." And I'm like, "Man, I'm happy to hear that, but I got to tell you, that wasn't my intent." Uh, and like I didn't intentionally do that.
Yeah,
I'm glad it worked out that way. Uh, and then it made me think about what was my intent, and that was the soil.
yeah,
And so yeah, so that's where the soil analogy came from. And because I think I made the connections with human beings uh based upon my based upon my education in the field of social work. that's where the human being connection came in at. And I just really started doing that. Like, it was good for me. Like, it was selfish, right? I would be out there and I would have my hands in the soil, and I saw all what that did for me. And it quieted the noise inside my head. It grounded me some, like
Yeah.
all of these things. And once I got settled enough, I think, then I was able to turn my focus to something greater than me, than
Hmm.
myself, right?
Hmm.
And naturally, that was folks like me, formerly incarcerated folks. And so I think in 2018, 2019 was our first year with our paid internship program for formerly incarcerated men and women.
Well, and I want to back up a little bit on that, Melvin, because how in the world did you know how to start a nonprofit and bring We the People Opportunity Farm to life? I mean, not very many people even know how to do that.
Yeah. Again, I didn't know how to do it either, man. Again, that's one of those like standing on the shoulders of a whole lot of folks, right?
Hmm.
And the right folks, it's like the right folks coming in at the right time. It's like if you start building this field of dreams, people will show
Yeah,
up, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's like all of that, right? It's naivety,
yeah,
right? Like me being really naive. If I would have thought about if I would have known about all that goes into this and all the work, and I probably would not have done this, man. You know that. I mean, with the farming part, man, I
yeah,
probably, but I was just naive. I was naive just enough, right?
yeah.
Yeah, to allow me to plow forward, not knowing what was next, right? Just having a lot of faith, right? Like I felt early on, my job in this whole thing has just simply been to lean into it
Hmm.
and let the universe work out the rest.
So We the People Opportunity Farm, it does a lot of different things. It's not just about farming. It actually, I want you kind of to expand on that because I know you have paid interns, and a lot of the stuff that you actually grow goes into the community,
Mm-hmm.
and actually helps pay for some of these paid interns. The paid interns are people who are formerly incarcerated, trying to get their life back into the play of a second chance. How do those people come to you, Melvin? Do you weed through prospects? Do they interview with you? I mean, how does that work for you?
Yeah, we do both of those things. They come to us through the relationships we've been able to build with the Michigan Department of Corrections, um, probation officers, parole officers, Washtenaw County Jail Street Outreach Program, or folks that just contact me and say, "Hey, I've got a son, or I've got a daughter, or I've got an uncle, or I've got an auntie, that might be interested in your program."
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we've got application process
Mm-hmm.
and an interview process that takes place. Um, and to your point, Brent, yeah, we do more than farming, right? Like farming is just a vehicle. Like farming's
Right.
to building trust with people enough for them to allow us to come alongside them and help change some soil in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, so they spend a decent amount of time a week with us out at the farm during the internship, but they're also involved this year. Once a week, there was an 8-week financial literacy course.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the internship, there was nonviolence communication training workshops.
Mm-hmm.
Um, During the course of their internship, they spent time with one of our community partners, Habitat for Humanity, coming alongside their volunteers, helping them to do some rehab work in the neighborhood on a house.
Yep.
Uh, they've also and currently are spending time with Michigan Works, with job training and skills development, and another awesome organization. Well, I think they're awesome. We'll see. Um, Organization that does that same kind of thing with pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship and mentoring and helping with housing and all of that. So, so farming is being out there on the farm with us is not what we feel the only soil changing component, right? Like
Right.
there's a, and those nutrients vary, right? From individual to individual. So
Absolutely.
we try to tailor, like at the beginning of the internship program, they do what we call a soil assessment, which is a needs assessment, but we like to use
I
the term,
like that.
yeah.
I like
And
that.
and and with that, we just throughout their internship, we check in with them, how you doing, like what's next, like in whatever their goals and needs are, we just try to come alongside them and help them to achieve them.
Man, I love it, Melvin, because I saw some of the people that got interviewed on some of the newscasts you've got a lot of different things where you've been covered on, and but you can just see it in their eyes and the way they speak that, man, I like this. This is making me feel good. It's that whatever that intangible thing is, you're giving them that, and so much of that, people are always saying, well, all those people go back to prison, and everybody who's convicted, they're not good people, so the thing that you're doing is you're breaking the narrative,
Yeah,
and you're giving these guys, because a lot of people don't understand. Like one of the things that's brought up in this PBS article that was written is like simple things, like they don't have transportation,
right.
and you work with them on getting to where they get to a point where they have transportation, where they can actually become part of society, or a place
Yeah,
to live, or all those different things that you're helping them with, financial literacy, all those pieces that are so needed, that if they just have that, then you do knock down the recidivism. You
yeah,
do start saying, and then somebody has a choice. I
yeah,
can either stay on this path, or I can go back to the bad soil.
right.
But I kind of like the good soil here. I like what I'm feeling like, and I feel better, and I feel like this is maybe somewhere I can grow. I
Yeah,
love all those elements that you're doing, Melvin. And the reason I think it's so effective, and I think, anybody wants to Google Melvin Parsons, you can read for a while. But the thing that I think makes you so special doing it is that you are the guy. They know when they're with you and they're working that garden and growing those plants and fruits and vegetables and all those different things, they know that you've lived it. They know that
I
you've
am
walked in those shoes.
I am the client.
Yeah. And
I
that's what I
am the
love about it.
I am the intern. Yeah, yeah,
I love it.
yeah,
And,
man.
and if we have, I'm always like, because I know a lot of different people that I've interviewed that are in the Michigan state, and I'm fascinated by how, I'm just impressed by how many individuals have really been able to take it a next step once they've gotten out and really make change. And Michigan, I see Michigan as one of those states that really, if you take it and put a blanket over the United States, Michigan really stands out as a state that's on the move, of people like you, Melvin, that are saying it doesn't have to be this way. I can actually change it. I'm going to start changing it. What do
Yeah,
you think that is? Why is Michigan doing all this? Because I've got 90 some odd interviews with all kinds of people all over the states,
yeah,
but I keep coming back to Michigan on certain individuals that are really making a great change in that state.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We got some very enthused and smart, inspiring folks at the helm of some wonderful organizations here centered around reentry and second chance and reform, sentencing, you name it, right? Yeah, we've got a very vibrant ecosystem in that. Uh, but in all of that, you know, I'm not a big fan of politicians at all. Uh, but I will say that this state, for the most part, we're fortunate to have some folks in office that kind of see the value.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like
Melvin, you can look. I
they're
think they're.
picking up,
I
yeah, they're picking up what we're putting down, right? You know, that sort
yeah,
of thing. You know,
and I think the recidivism rate has almost been cut in half compared to other states. And I have to think it's a direct effect of what you and other people are doing that actually affects what people do when they get out, that breaks the cycle. It literally breaks it and gives them an opportunity to look at something different and not
hmm
go back through the same cycle again. You know, I was Jessica Henry was on here a couple of weeks ago, and
yeah,
you know she has an incredible story of how she got knocked down and back up and knocked down
yeah,
and back up. But you know, she's doing incredible work now, mentoring people, knowing what it
yeah,
took for her to get on the right path. But you know, she's working on policy too, where you know
yeah,
it's trying to get the box off of there for you know to be able to get someplace to live. And
yeah, yeah.
um, I'm just I was so intrigued by. I guess what intrigues me the most about your story is that first of all you didn't give up on yourself, but secondly you weren't looking for this.
Right. Yeah.
You weren't a farmer.
No, I was, I was content. I was content with living my life on SSI and trying to keep a menial job and not get high and to keep a roof over my head. That was it. That's it.
That was it.
Yeah, that was it. And so this life that I've got now, this opportunity that I have now that I've been humbly bestowed, uh, is just as impressive to me as it is to anyone
Well, I
else.
mean, you're a founder of a nonprofit that gets national recognition from a you know somebody as big as PBS, but it's um, I'm
Hey,
curious. Like, yeah, go ahead.
hey man, Jane Fonda was at our farm this past Saturday, right?
I love it,
Yeah.
and that's a lady that doesn't age. I think she's like in her 80s now, isn't she?
Yeah, she's 82. Well, God dang, let me take that back. She's in her 80s.
Yeah,
Uh yeah, Jane Fonda and one of our United States senators, no, uh um Dr. Douglas Brinkley, who's
yep.
author and historian,
Famous
and
historian. Yep.
yeah, and Alice Waters, who is a leader, a world renowned chef, and a leader with community gardens and growing foods. Like all of these folks were at my farm Saturday, right? And as well some of my friends at the Henry Ford and some of the Fords, and again, like all I wanted was quite not quite a few years ago, but not too long ago, was just to be on SSI, right? Maintain
I
some.
mean, I got to tell you, and I think the reason why you know we talk about this all the time, you know, this particular podcast is that it's inspiring for people to hear a story because if somebody is stuck and somebody has built up prisons in their own mind, they don't think they can take a next step. Somehow, some way, Melvin, you kept stepping and you stepped into an opportunity. People believed in you. Now people are coming to you to learn what you're doing. What kind of conversations do you have with these guys when you're working with them that they've found this and you've accepted them in? What's that like?
I don't know. It's just I guess it's like language of the heart, right? You
It
know,
has to
it's
fill
just
you up.
huh?
It has to fill you up, knowing that you're giving something back into what you've experienced that's actually really helping.
It does. It's good for the soul. I think one of the most poignant conversations I've had was not with, and I've had lots of them with our interns, but was with these two young kids. One was 11 and one was 9. And our farm is surrounded by a community. So these young kids would climb the fence, and there's driveway, big driveway near our farm, which got a couple basketball rims on it. And so they would climb the fence to come over there and play basketball. And then one day I needed some help with something, and I asked them to help me, right? And they did. And a couple days later, they came over there and they said, "Can we see your farm?" And and I'm able to show them the farm and talk to them. And then I think the next time we encountered each other, one of them says to me, "Hey, Farmer Parson, you ever been to jail?" And I think this was the 11-year-old, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, now we're getting down. Now we're getting somewhere, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And I says, "Yeah, I've been to jail." "Hey, Will," I says, "Yeah, I've been to jail." And the other one says, "Ooh, what you go to jail for, right?" And it was as if he's trying to, not that he was really excited about that, but he's just trying to normalize this because he
Right.
probably senses that this is his future, right?
Yeah.
And so I say to the kid, I say, "Hey, kid, it don't really matter what I went to jail for. Uh, what matters is that you get the best education that you can possibly get under whatever circumstances, so that you can potentially get a good job, maybe drive a car that you want to drive, eat some food that you want to eat. And what's also important is that you treat yourself with kindness and dignity, and equally important that you treat others the same way. But the most important thing on your agenda is to come over here periodically and check and make sure if I need some help or not, right?"
I love it. I love it. But I mean that, and it goes back to what you were saying. You fell into what everybody else was doing in the neighborhood when you were growing up, because you said, Melvin, you had a good upbringing. You had people
Yeah,
that were looking out for you, but you chose to find yourself into what all the cool kids were doing. And
yeah.
when they start looking around and they see cool kids starting to do things that can be like this and see what Melvin's doing like this, all of a sudden it's a different type of role model. It's a different type of mentor. Good stuff.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
hope.
Well, you can only hope,
You can only hope, right?
that's what, Romo, my first bunkmate, I interviewed, I think it was the second interview I did on here.
Uh-huh.
And he said, never take away someone's hope because that might be all they got.
Strongest currency that we carry as human beings.
Yep.
I'm a
Yep.
firm believer in that.
I got to ask you, Melvin, because I mean, you've lived, I mean, through all these layers and you've come out and you're doing something you really enjoy. You're helping a lot of people. Gets fantastic recognition. Hopefully, we can plug this in and duplicate it all over the United States. But what do you think's your biggest takeaway of what you've been through with your life?
Um, Good question, Brent. Oh gosh. What's my biggest takeaway? My biggest takeaway is that everything I've gone through has led me to be the person that I am, right? So, my biggest takeaway is to forgive myself,
Yep.
uh, to make peace with myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not to blame others, and know that one person can do a lot. You
I
can do.
love that. You just threw out a whole bunch of good stuff there, Melvin.
Shucks, you asked me my biggest. Yeah, I threw out a couple of them. Sorry about that. I
No,
just,
no.
you
I
know,
mean,
like,
what you threw out there is how someone can find their way.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a good place for us to to end on, because I think what you just said has all kinds of nuggets of wisdom. If somebody wants to do and donate and be a part of what you're doing, how would somebody find you?
Oh, so they can go to our website,
Yeah.
which is WTPOF.org, the acronym for We the People Opportunity Farm. They can follow us on our connect with us on our social media pages. Our Instagram page is the acronym, so it's
Okay.
WTPOF, and our Facebook page is the full name, We the People Opportunity Farm. And I think my contact info's on there, and we've got an info email. Reach out, say hello. Yeah.
Awesome.
Uh, come join the party.
And I'll make sure I put all that in the episode show notes too, because I want everybody, if they want to be a part of it, because it's a fantastic. And I feel so privileged to be able to spend some time with you, Melvin, to talk about what you've been doing, because I think it's inspiring stuff, and I think it's going to continue to do great things for people as you do it and help people one by one. For anybody, what did you say, Melvin?
I said, thanks, Brent. I appreciate that.
For anybody who got something out of this today, and I know you did, go follow the show. Go hit that bell on Spotify. Follow the show on Apple. If you've got time, I don't know what it is about algorithms, but if you have time, it's a big deal if you leave a review. We're getting a lot of reviews. It really pumps up, puts the show on steroids. If you want to know more about me, because I'm going to put all the stuff about Melvin in there, go to BrentCassidy.com. It's with a TY, not a DY. I remember when I was growing up, though, Melvin, I wanted to be Sean and David Cassidy. I didn't have the right DY name. Hey, if you're looking for a book out there, I've got one, Nightmare Success. Check me out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And as I used to say when I was writing my emails back and forth when I was 11, was stay strong, and I'll do the same. Melvin, Parson, man, keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you, man.
Hey, man, back at you. Keep doing what you're doing, Brent. I got one more thing to say.
Yes.
We've got a YouTube page also, so check that out, please.
Is it We the People Opportunity Farm?
It is, and we've got some YouTube shorts on there.
Cool. I'll put that in there too.
Thanks, man.
All right, Melvin. Thank you so much, man. Nightmare Success in and out.
Way to go, Nightmare Success.